Ready? Yes. No. Whatever you want. All right. Howdy, friends. We're going to call the SMART board meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. If you all wouldn't mind, please stand in and joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Tiffany, if you wouldn't mind with the roll, please.
Chairman Abdul Haddis is excused absence. Vice Chairperson Mr. John Paul Reyes will be chairing the meeting.
Present.
Ms. Hillary Chambers.
Present.
Ms. Sheila Cote.
Present.
Dr. Curtis Ivory. Mr. Royce Manico is also excused absence. And Mr. Brett Braids again.
Present. Excellent. Thank you so very much. Next, we are going to move on to adoption of the agenda. I would very much appreciate a motion, real quick, Mr. Raz again. For the board briefings, we will exclude 10A and B today on our agenda. So if we could have a motion, are you good with that, Brett?
So.
Excellent. And second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we have an agenda. Ms. Martin, certification of public notice, please.
Yes, Chairman. SMART will hold the SMART July 25th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting at 2 p.m. in the Beal Building located on 535 Griswold Street, Suite 600, Detroit, Michigan, 48226. This meeting is open to the public.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to move on to 6A. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for July the 8th, 2024.
So moved.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are passed. Next, we're going to move on to public participation. Very much appreciate everyone coming out today. Just as a general reminder, 3 minutes per speaker. If you come up to the podium, if you could please state your name and your place of residence, that would be greatly appreciated. And the podium is open. Good afternoon, Brother Cunningham.
How you doing, sir?
Doing
Good
well,
to
thank
see
you.
you.
Good to
Good to
see you
see
too.
everybody. I'm an advocate, DDOT, SMART, go to the board meetings, city council meetings, etc. And for 8 years, I was on the coaches before I was a taxi cab and outreach from that, where I give out bus tickets, hand warmers, and gloves and things. And people just complain about the fast bus and it's not on time or it didn't show up, which is good for business, but I'm empathetic. And I think that SMART should be more aggressive. DDOT has a training program, which all they need is a license and then they'll give them CDLB and then they go on. If y'all can't beat them, you join them. I mean, maybe you guys can join forces in training bus drivers through the DDOT training center or start your own. They have over 100 graduates over the last 6 or 7 months. I mean, they're really pushing them out. I think that's a good idea. And also using the overhead, what they call it, annunciator or the audio systems on the buses, using that to advertise the positions at SMART, not just the drivers. Drivers need more pay. They need more amenities to retain the drivers. These are your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, these are your church members. These are people, these are not just numbers, these are people. I know the pandemic plays a part, but this is the worst I've ever seen SMART. And it is what it is. I don't get paid for saying so, and so I have the right to say so. This is the worst I've seen it. So I'm hoping things get better, more abrasive in getting more drivers and retaining the drivers. I thank you for all your leadership. You know who I'm talking to. And you guys are always in my prayers. And like I said, this is the worst I've ever seen SMART. They need a contract and they need higher wages and they need to keep their pension. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Cunningham. Appreciate it, sir.
Appreciate you.
afternoon. My name is Brenda Smith, and I am a dialysis patient over at Northwest. They have been dropping me and others off on Lasher Street and making us walk to the building. I am not able to do that kind of walking and have told them I'm going to faint right in front of the building, and I'm going to hold Smart Bus responsible. You all have talked about this situation over and over, and you do not seem to have enough faith that your drivers can back up, which I find just disgusting, that you would have drivers driving us around and you don't have faith that they can back up. I have come here to ask you to do something about that, because if this continues, I am going to file an ADA against Smart, because there's no reason that we should be left in the street. I also want to say, as a former business agent for a union, I am very disappointed that these workers are working without a contract. That seems to be a problem with Smart in negotiating these contracts for your workers. Your workers don't stay because you don't seem to have enough respect for them. Please do what you can to get their contract negotiated. I know the tricks that people play in contract negotiations. And as the gentleman said earlier, these are your brothers and sisters. They should not be working without a contract. The same way each and every one of you would like to have a good job that pays you well and respects you. The last thing I want to say, ever since you all got that millage, the service has been terrible, absolutely terrible. I don't know what the problem is, but it seems like you have administrative problems in how to manage your people. Do something, please, and do something soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Batterman. I live in Detroit and work as engagement manager for Transportation Riders United, Detroit's nonprofit transit advocate. True is happy to see Smart's rollout of the new Route 759 Highland last month. This connects Waterford and White Lake townships to the Smart system for the first time. Unfortunately, the crisis of no-show buses has not been resolved. Until this is addressed, riders cannot rest easy. It is unacceptable that people continue to be left stranded by buses that are late or don't even arrive at all. It's really a matter of basic respect for those Smart serves, most of whom have few other options for getting around. According to survey results from Smart's recently released Smarter Mobility Report, bus riders across from more than 40 routes noted that buses were late or never showed up, impacting their trust in the system and in some cases causing problems with riders' employers. I continue to quote, several riders mentioned losing jobs or facing workplace discipline due to late or canceled bus service. Many required multiple buses to complete their typical trip, so respondents often missed connections due to a delay on their earlier bus. Routes 261, Fast Michigan, and 462, Fast Woodward, received the most comments relating to delays and cancellations. 40% of those who commented on this issue rely primarily on those fast routes. It's those fast routes, I might add, that are supposed to act as the backbone of the system. We've known for a long time what's needed to fix this crisis, bringing in more bus operators. To do so, the job must be made more attractive. We're glad to see that SMART is now offering a new hire bonus, but this isn't enough so long as the starting pay for operators is still only $19 an hour. This is especially true now that the city of Detroit has raised wages for DDOT operators who are now paid $19 an hour while in training. We are hopeful that a new contract with SMART operators will contain a substantial wage increase, but first the contract must be finalized. As you know, contract negotiations have now dragged on for a year and a half, and SMART operators have been working more than 500 days without a contract. Again, this is a matter of basic respect for both drivers and riders. We urge SMART administration to settle the contract negotiations as soon as possible so the operators can receive the wage increases they deserve and that are necessary to restore reliable service for riders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Hello, Smart Board. My name is Stephen Haring. I live in downtown Detroit. I'm an independent transit activist. I just want to first say I want to express my extreme disgust and disappointment that we still don't have a contract and that 3 drivers were unjustly fired for just speaking out, during the last meeting. And, I have a question for Dwight Fair. Hopefully he'll answer it at the end. So when you were a bus driver, did you ever work without a contract? I want to know that because, I know the other day you mentioned you were fired from your not because of clause. That doesn't mean exactly, that it could have been that you weren't doing a great job. But, overall, I've been riding SMART for 15 years. I used to take it a lot more before I moved downtown. And, this is the worst I've ever seen it, just the most inefficient. These buses are frequently late. Woodward's usually like 20, 30 minutes late if it even shows up. It's the first time in a while that DDOT's actually more efficient than SMART. Usually, the last couple times, when I go to Ferndale, go to my parents for a family barbecue, I just Uber. Even one time I took my bike. The current state of affairs with the leadership, it's just disgraceful. There's a severe lack of accountability. And, I have a message for this board. If you don't have a contract for those drivers in 50 days, I think this board should really consider, terminating Dwight Farrell's contract and leadership, because this is just ridiculous. I have never seen a union crisis or a labor crisis this bad. And, these drivers go through hell and back. This isn't some small summer job. They deserve to get paid. They deserve to be on a union, and they deserve their freedom of speech to criticize the working conditions. This is just shameful. And, I hope this board takes this in account.
Thank you, Mr. Haring.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Manti. I live in Detroit. I ride the bus to work most days during the week. I've seen a lot of missed runs on Woodward, 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. I mean, it causes a lot of pain. I have a job that allows me the flexibility. If I'm a half hour late, it's not the end of the world. But there's not a lot of people who ride the bus who have that luxury. I've seen people get a call from their boss saying, don't bother showing up. And it's all because people don't want to work for you. Do you understand that? It's not the driver's fault that they don't want to work for the terrible pay that you're offering them. It's not the driver's fault that Smart isn't willing to work with them to develop a contract when it's been over 500 days. This is ridiculous. It's an abdication of duty. So I just want you to know that you are causing real pain in the communities around Detroit, in this region. And a lot of those people don't have the ability to come here and tell you. So I'm telling you for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Colon. I'm the president of ATU Local 1564. At last month's meeting, Mr. Farrell stated that since the union wants to negotiate in public, we can. The union never wanted to negotiate in public. We went 22 months not negotiating in public, but it was your actions at the table and here that brought us back today. I don't want to have to come down here every month, just like you don't want to see me. In your response to the union's comments a few weeks ago, you made a number of either false or misleading comments. You stated that the union didn't ask for a shift premium. You offered it. We did at the beginning and you said no, but later countered with a proposal that stated when 50% of your work is done after 7 p.m., then you will receive the 45 cents you mentioned, which would be less than 15% of the drivers. You mentioned that you offered us an attendance incentive. We didn't ask for it. We did with the proposal that used a memorandum of understanding that was already in the contract. You received government funds through the infrastructure bill. That stipulated monies for such incentives, but you added stipulations that would exclude drivers or make them miss the incentives if they are called for jury duty or God forbid a death in the family and they use bereavement days they earn. You stated that you negotiated the same attendance policy that every other union accepted, insinuating that we were the problem holdout. Because of our jobs are different, and from all the other bargaining units, we had different wants and needs to address, which you refused to move on, and failing to mention that the UAW had been forced to negotiate for 22 months as well, just agreeing to settle a week prior to the last board meeting. You went on to state that all the changes are to provide consistent service to the people that come here every month and say we don't. The public we drive or serve proudly. Change is inevitable. The union never had a problem with change, but forcing change through questionable negotiation tactics and changing 80 items on a contract with 49 articles is extreme, and it creates chaos and distrust for the employees that you claim to value. There are more things I would like to say, but I don't have the luxury of the 9.5 minutes you had with no rebuttal to the one side of the story, I believe is the term you used. Just like you were hired to do your job, I was elected to do mine. If my membership chooses to vote on your offer, so be it. If not, you will continue to hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colon.
Hi, my name is Donna Lowe. I rode the bus for about 25 years. I'm here just as a consumer because I'm having so many problems with my rides. I don't get it. This is a lot of mixed messages and like Smart with their employees. To me, this ain't the place to air the dirty laundry. This is something in-house that should be fixed. I'm here as one of the public of the consumer we see Mike Dugan on the news saying we got more buses than drivers, new buses, but yet twice in the last week or two, I've had to wait for not one bus broke down, but two, and sitting sometimes on the ground or whatever, waiting for my bus to show up. Or taking my mother to the dentist that just turned 80 years old a couple days ago, and she has dementia. I have a form of MS that the bus didn't show up to pick us up. 45 minutes later, I had to take my shoes off and walk that 3.25 mile to get her home because they didn't show up. When we called a schedule ride where it says we're 239 in line, that we're sitting on the phone over an hour. Now, these are the problems with Smart. I worked before I had an ACL replacement out of my leg. I didn't get a raise for 5 years, but I showed up every day. This is an in-house problem. Y'all need to do that. But what about the people in the public? That we have illnesses, everybody's waiting for that gotcha, or we call and it's like a game. We don't want to be in the middle of a game. And that's what I got to say. There's problems and they need fixed. And the website is out of date. And when I used to call to schedule a regular ride, it says they will tell you right then your day, if they have the ride or not. I wrote it for years. It always did. Now I'm not allowed to know if that ride's even available to 12 hours before. And the last 4 times it only had half the ride, even though I got up at 6:50 waiting for 7 o'clock to hit. I got out of bed and made that effort, but no, you only can get 88. Why are we going to give you the dollar ride when we can get $3? You know, but when you're on Social Security and you're disabled, it's a lot. That's all I got to say. I don't know what else to say, but there's a lot of problems. And it seems like the public is getting thrown in the middle of this in-house problem. That's it. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone. I am Shetron Collier, President Business Agent, ATU Local 26. I represent the DDOT operators as well as the Q line operators. I just heard someone come up here and say that SMART has been reduced to something worse than DDOT. I worked for DDOT for 35 years. So if you have become worse than that, what's come after worse? Because whatever it is, anybody that's in this room that has any hand in it is responsible for it. You are failing the exact people you are getting paid to work for. Essentially, that's it. As an operator, I showed up at work every day. I have never had an attendance problem in 35 years, ever. But it as the mayor said earlier in the interview, when we had enough buses, we didn't have enough drivers. And when we had enough drivers, we didn't have enough buses. I experienced that for 35 years at DDOT. But I showed up every day, whether they had a bus for me or not, whether I had someone working in front of me or not. So if it's someone, I heard them say someone here was a bus driver at one time. Have you ever worked on a route where you didn't have a person in front of you? If SMART is contributing to failing their passengers, they have now created a hostile work environment for every operator out there driving the bus. Those type of situations cause escalation of violence towards operators that are out there operating. And more than once in my career, I have been attacked by multiple people at one time while being an operator. So I know exactly what that feels like. I'm hoping no one in this room, right, would want to take responsibility for that. That you would be showing up every day to make sure that those type of situations don't happen. Because every operator that goes out there to provide for their family and the public have a right to go home, to not feel like they have to carry a weapon. We're not in the Army. We're not the police. We're just bus drivers that want to provide the service. And if anyone in this room is standing in the way of that, then you are failing. For them to have gone this long without a contract, there's pretty obvious that everyone is not on the same agenda. Now, as someone who's myself has been involved in negotiations, here's what I know. That we both should be working on one accord to get where we're trying to go. We can argue about the route that we get there, but there should never be a misunderstanding of where we're trying to go. I am so glad that the mayor finally realized that they had to come and compete for operators. Because for a long time, you guys were able to come in and rob us of all our operators. Guess what? That has switched for you. You have to now step up to the plate and compete with everybody else out here who needs people who have CDL license. This is a skill. Yeah, a technical skill. Y'all need to respect that.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon to the board and to the writing public and to the public. My name is Maquita Burton. I work at SMART. I'm the vice president of ATU, Local 1564, and I live in Detroit. There has been a time when the operators of this establishment or the writing public, there have not been a time when the operators of this establishment or the writing public has been displayed such a dissatisfaction at these public meetings as in the most recent year. Ask yourselves, why is this? It's difficult to communicate our concerns when they continue to fall on deaf ears. We are now compelled to speak out. Mr. Farrell and his administration continually pursue an indifferent stance towards the union, using tactics to silence us into submission. This is a stark contrast to the past relationship, which was based on communication and cooperation to achieve resolutions. The erosion of this collaborative spirit is a significant factor in the current climate of dissatisfaction. Was it Mr. Farrell's job to try to intimidate or undermine the union? Attitude reflects leadership, and in operations, it is evident in morale. Seeing how the decisions being made come through the board for approval and recognizing that you were chosen to make critical decisions about the company, including selecting Mr. Farrell as general manager, you alone should be held accountable for the choices you've made and should have some concern about the misconduct circulating. Lastly, the board's lack of action or investigation is deeply troubling and raises a significant concern about the governance and the oversight of this organization. This inaction not only jeopardizes the trust and confidence of the public and employees, but also suggests a deeper issue of accountability within the board itself. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Burton.
Good afternoon. My name is Troy Mosley, steward for ATU 1564 and driver for SMART. The current general manager, Dwight Farrell, holds the position of power, sits on the board of directors. During a recent public hearing, he called out the union, creating a hostile and unprofessional environment. While we may have conceded he may have convinced some of you all with his calm demeanor and doublespeak. He has not fooled us, our leadership, or our members. We ask you, the board, to take initiative and rein control over the person that you all chose to hire. Remember, those who put you in those seats get elected. And remember, each one of us are voters. We voted for the millage, and we voted for the people that put you all in those seats also. For the management team that he's so well put together, you all have rights too. I know a lot of you all are dissatisfied with this current leadership. You can stand up and stand out. You can. They have to fire you for just cause. Speak up. Stop being afraid. We're not afraid. Board, do your job. Respectfully, I ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley.
Hello, board. My name is Ivan Drury. I'm visiting from Vancouver, Canada. I'm a member of Amalgamated Transit Union, ATU Local 1724 in Vancouver. I'm a bus driver, a paratransit driver there. We're currently in strike action after being in bargaining since October last year. So we've been without a contract since September, and that feels like a really long time. But it's nothing compared to what the brothers and sisters here have been going through. The main issue in our job action is wages, but wages are not wages alone. They're, like I hear from brothers and sisters here, wages are working conditions. Wages are the ability to fill shifts, the ability to run a good transit system. Every single board meeting that we have there, our paratransit's contracted out to Transdev. So our union's always on about bringing it back in-house because it's so difficult to navigate a private company and that private-public partnership structure. So this is a bit of a warning too, that being in-house doesn't solve everything. But we always go to the board meetings like this and hear them talk about the difficulty of hiring people, keeping people on, that we have a problem of turnover. Now, we make a bit more than the drivers here do, not much, but our cost of living is really high in Vancouver. And so they always say, next time the company is going to be able to bring more people on board. Next time they're going to stop contracting out to taxis, because that's how they deal with the shortcomings in paratransit in Vancouver. Is about 22% of our rides go to private taxis, so the kind of second level of contracting out. So we know that wages mean the ability to hire and maintain people and offer good services to clients, good services to passengers. So it's drivers and our unions that care about passengers. And in my experience, companies that get in the way. So I think stop getting in the way, support this local to get a good contract, the wages they deserve, and passengers to get the services they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan.
Good afternoon, members of the board of directors and the general public present and listening, streaming in. My name is Claudette Delahaye. I'm a Southfield resident, and I just did tell everyone last time about the 405. It is still an ongoing issue where Monday through Thursday buses are still missing in the morning. So I have to seek alternate route, which brings me to the next issue. Calling customer service is a help, but for those passengers, you need to plan ahead. And I'm going to seriously tell you, plan ahead. Call 45 minutes before your buses do. And make sure you ask, is there a driver present? Is the bus present? And if the route has been cut. It's giving problems. So when we get to the bus stop, there's no bus. Then we have to call again. And then we're told officially that there's no bus service for the second time for the route that we asked for. So I'm urging our passengers to be proactive about getting your bus and seek an alternative route. Other issues that I'm looking at, I decided when I left the last meeting, it's time for a consumer confidence survey. So I have your first survey. Out of 24 surveys, 12 for the passengers and 12 for the drivers. Drivers were asked how confident, out of 1 out of 10, how confident they were about working for SMART. They get a rousing between 8 and 10 out of 10. Between 8 and 10 out of 10. Sorry about that. And when it comes to working without a contract, most drivers were giving a -1. Your highest score was a 3. 3 out of 10. Passengers, they're giving marks between 7 and 10 for service. It varies day to day. So with that said, I've spoken with the VP of operations, and she says you're at 82%, or I think it's more realistically after the breakdowns during the day, it's round about 75. My suggestion is that you right size on a day-to-day basis and plan the day before the routes you're going to cut. If you're going to cut permanently and right size the system now to try and serve. You can't rob Pete in Troy to let Paul ride in Novi. And thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public looking to speak? Yes.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Lucas Lasecki with Transportation Riders United. And as we sit here today, you've heard all these people speak. I just implore you to think about who's really benefiting from the state of things here, because I really don't see how you at the board or Mr. Farrell are winning here, as everyone else seems to be losing. We, the riders who give this system the reason to exist, are losing, as service reliability is continually abysmal, and we've now each been left stranded more time than Willie Nelson has made records, which is somewhere in the 60s. People have been upended by a years-long driver shortage that is nowhere close to resolution. We, the taxpayers who give this system the funding to operate, are losing, as our dollars are going to a system that can't even reliably run the lifeline hourly service it provides, that it promises, rather, it doesn't provide. We, the advocates, are losing, as the unreliable service is making it hard for us to justify our fight to get you more funding, to the skeptical politician and to the many skeptical taxpayers. SMART's rank and file staff are losing, particularly those in the External Affairs Department who have dealt with a barrage of preventable complaints from all three of those groups due to this crisis. But most of all, our brothers and our sisters in the ATU who have worked every single wheel to keep SMART turning are losing, as they have worked without a contract for more than a year and a half. They've negotiated in good faith for better pay and better conditions, and in return have received offers of raises packaged with a smorgasbord of benefit cuts and unreasonable rules. They've silently worked without a contract, not negotiating in public for close to 2 years, spending countless months being denied their needs in negotiations. They're sitting idly by while management wags the dog to distract from this crisis. And they've seen 2 of their sisters fired in retaliation for speaking truth to power. I don't need to tell you that's unacceptable. For months, you've heard me and a few others talk about our experiences with SMART, how this has made it nearly impossible to effectively use this system, unless you're some nerd like me who knows the inner workings of the system and can predict these cuts hours in advance. It's leaving people stranded in winter, spring, and fall, rain and snow, sleet and hail. We, the riders, we, the taxpayers, and we, the advocates, are sick of this, and we need action now to resolve this crisis, because we cannot deal with any more of this. There won't be a SMART at this rate if this does not get resolved. Have some empathy, give the drivers what they need, get the contract resolved now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lucas. Any other members of the public hoping to address the board today? Seeing none, we will close public participation. Next, agenda item number 8, I will forego my time and we will jump into the general manager's report. Mr. Farrell.
Well, I've been asked to respond to a specific question, and I will do that. I was asked if I have ever been in a situation as an operator where we went without a contract. I have been through concessionary bargaining, which means we gave up and didn't get. So the economic times of when I was an operator is very different than where we are today. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. However, what I will say is this. It is my understanding that there's a vote scheduled for Monday for the ATU to decide whether or not they want to accept our latest offer. Our latest offer as I also understand it, would make the smart operators the highest paid operators in the state at the signing of the contract, which would mean that they would be paid more even on the starting level than those of DDOT. Now, benefits, I heard someone say that Smart wanted to cut benefits. That is absolutely categorically untrue. We didn't touch anybody's health care. We didn't do any of those. We didn't say reducing your vacation time. We didn't do any of those things. Now, if that is the case, then it's something that I am not aware of. Now, am I aware that Smart misses runs? Yes, I am. But Smart was missing runs before I got here. There are a whole host of reasons where I could sit here and go on and on and on as to why they are. But I can also tell you that there are things that Smart's trying to do in order to be able to readdress this. There are fundamental changes with our organization. We have to change from how we maintain vehicles to how we recruit and retain staff. Our purpose for anything that we asked for in the contract was in no way meant to hurt anyone here. We are not cutting anybody's pension. That is just not true. Anybody who has a pension keeps it. What we proposed was to give people who were coming in something different, which was a 401k with a match from this company. Now, part of my responsibility and the management team's responsibility is to look at trends in terms of what other employers are offering in order to be competitive. Now, I can tell you that there are some places who went to 401ks 30 years ago. So what we are proposing is not new. I also want to make it a point to be real clear. As someone who has people who are in a millennial space or a Generation Z space, their requirements are different. The things that I would have accepted as an operator, they won't. And so the changes that we proposed were changes to address that issue, in no way to hurt anyone who was already here. So I don't want to get into a back and forth, between somebody making comments and a comment that I make. But understand this, my directive was to make sure that the employees at Smart were the highest paid in this state doing what they do, period. And if anybody tells you other than that, that's not true. For all of the reasons that people come up here and talk about. So I'll close with this. I have never made it a point to talk about how things were before I got here. I know how things were before I got here. But I can also tell you that when you're trying to rebuild a house, which is in a matter of what we're doing, some of these changes must be made. But I cannot reiterate enough. The wages that we offered were not less. And I'd like for the employees to have contracts too. Because at the end of the day, all the things that the people come up and complain about are things that we must address. Absolutely must address. So don't think that they fall on deaf ears that Smart or Dwight Farrell doesn't care. That's absolutely not true. So as my responsibility is not only to look at what's going on now, but to set this organization for what it's going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And that's exactly what we're doing. So again, I hope that on the 30th, Monday, that the members of the ATU will ratify this contract and we can move on from this. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Any comments or questions from members of the board? Ms. Chambers.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I think that what we have heard today and what we have heard in recent weeks, it underscores why everyone who has participated in negotiations over their lifetime, and many people here, Dr. Ivory for one, is someone who has done it more than I have. But for me, it underscores why negotiations are not done in public because of the sensitive nature and the feelings that the negotiations bring about. And so I think we all have to be respectful of that. This board supports the right to associate, the right to bargain collectively. It's a fundamental right. I see it as basic as a human right. And we also have been apprised of and support the negotiating position of SMART. It has been difficult that it has gone on this long, but it has not gone on this long as a tactic. So I am hopeful as well. And I hope that with all of this noise, that the membership has the information that they need to make a decision for them and their families in terms of what is contained within this contract. Because I believe that the management of SMART has gone through and gotten to an agreement with all of the other unions with many of the same provisions that are in this contract that are also being implemented and seem to be implemented in a way that is improving working conditions, not harming working conditions. So, and I think it is important for the advocates who we respect to understand that you are not in the management of SMART. And you can't really stand there and say, we have missed routes and we don't treat our drivers well enough. I mean, there is a disconnect between what you're saying, and I hope that you'll evaluate that. Because all of this comes together. We want to have the best paid drivers in the state. And we also want to have just basic common sense policies to improve working conditions and improve the operation of SMART. So again, I just want to underscore that I hope that even with the noise, that the members have the information that they need in the next few days or can get the information that they need to make a decision that's best for them.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Appreciate that. Any other sentiments from members of the board? Ms. Chambers, I will just also echo undoubtedly a tremendous amount of sensitivities anytime we're discussing collective bargaining and the livelihood of the individuals that are the front line of the service that we provide to a region of over 5 million individuals. We are hopeful that the tenor of these conversations will lead to productive outcomes on all fronts. And I think undoubtedly by the actions of members of this board and the commitment that we have with not only our local communities, the service expansions that we're continuing to see in a multitude of areas around the region, and the way that we're looking to continue to leverage the Smart Mobility Plan as a conduit for ways to modernize service, that things will begin to not only lead to more reliable service, but more impactful service that will give people mobility options throughout the region. And I know that those are a lot of flowery words from a mid-level bureaucrat that sits at this table and smiles every once a month. But this is something that I think is ingrained in the fabric of everyone's DNA that sits on this board, because we are committed to not only enhancing and modernizing this, but making sure that we provide these forums so that the public can express any concerns that they may have and put the collective forth of all of the decision makers at this body and all of the inspiring individuals that work for us every single day. With that said, we are going to move along to new business. We are going to start with 11A, resolution for August, September, October 2024 board meeting locations. Can I get a motion, please? So it's been moved. Support. Support.
Good afternoon. Hey. Any questions?
Wait, let's see.
This is a resolution to amend the schedule to provide for the locations and the communities for board meetings in August, September, and October.
These are each one of the meetings that we will be holding in all of the represented counties on this board.
Correct.
Thank you, Laura. We have a motion and support. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, a resolution for audit committee appointments. Ryan, what do you need from us today?
We are seeking the nomination and appointment for the audit committee, which is the bylaws require at least a 3-member audit committee. The board chairperson is also considered an ex officio non-voting member, but that does not preclude them from also participating as a full member. So we are requesting the 3 people be nominated, and one of those being a chair.
All right, so
Hadis?
Al's not here, so Al's in there. If there's no objection from my counterpart from Macomb, I will offer my services for the audit committee. And I guess we need one more for whoever's interested in joining.
I would offer my service.
Thank you, Mr. Razigan. Appreciate it. So we got Al, myself, and Mr. Razigan. Any other options from the floor?
Anybody would like to be the chair?
If there's no objections, I'd be more than happy to gavel.
Thank you very much.
All
We just
righty.
need a resolution.
If
Sorry.
everyone is agreeable to this,
So I move the appointment of JP Rea as chair of the audit committee and membership being made up of Al Hadis and Brett Razigan.
thank you, Ms. Chambers. Thank you for the second, Dr. Ivory. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We have an audit committee. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Next, we are looking for a resolution for Smart's fiscal year 2024 5310 program of projects. And I believe Ben is here from the RTA to give us a little bit of rundown, and Tiffany's going to provide us with a little bit of insight into what we're doing here.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah.
Last year, this board took an action to approve the first year of a 2-year allocation of 5310 funding. That program did see some significant changes. And so what we've asked this year is for the RTA to come and talk about the process for the 5310 program before we take an action on the 2nd-year allocation. And so Benjamin Stupka from the RTA, I don't know your title, Ben.
Executive Director.
Executive Director is here to talk about that. Thank you.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us
No
today.
problem.
Really
Thank
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members. I will keep this brief. I know you've had a busy meeting. I'm going to do an overview of the 5310 program and kind of the general process to get us to funding decisions. So 5310 is a federal code for the Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disability program. The funding meets the needs of transportation needs of older adults, people with disabilities, and actually also focuses on low-income individuals. It requires a coordinated plan, or what is actually called the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan, which is not a name I gave it, but is the name the federal government gives it, and a program management plan. The first full update of that plan, which included the entirety of our region, the RTA's region, so Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw, was done in 2020. We are moving forward with an update of that plan. We actually have emails going out right now to staff a technical working group to pull that plan together. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in another couple of slides. The funding that comes to the RTA as a designated recipient is approximately $5 million annually. That's to the Detroit UZA. One of the key things to understand about the program is that 55% of that funding has to go to what we call traditional projects, essentially bus and van replacements. That's because of some old federal laws and things combining that I will not get into, happy to get into off mic, but that's just one of the rules we have to follow that makes programming a little bit tricky. We distribute the funding through a 2-year call for projects. Our next call will be in the spring of 2025. So next call will be fiscal year 25 and 26. We do that through a programming committee that includes providers, SMART, DDOT, and others, subrecipients, human service agencies, and others to help us review applications and come up with a program that fits. If we can get this to work. No, there we go. All right. So the coordinated plan. So again, this is a federally required document. We have to update every 2 or 3 years. This is where we focus on strategies for improving services for seniors, people with disabilities, and people with low incomes. We focus on doing inventories of existing service providers. So think about your community providers, nonprofits, your paratransit services. Those types of services are what we're looking at. again, this, the document you see on your screen here was the first full regional update or plan ever done for this entire region. So we're just now starting our next update. That should take about 12 months to complete, and we are looking to staff a board, a technical committee to do that update. Along with the coordinated plan is a what we call program management plan. Also is a federally required document. This is the operation and management of the 5310 funding. So this is how do we distribute the funding? How do we meet federal guidelines? How do we manage subrecipients, which I know is something that Ian, who will talk later, and the SMART board and staff know a whole lot about. And the federal government loves to ask a lot of questions about during our triennial reviews, which is always really fun. So we have the call for projects process, connecting federal programming, subrecipient management. So again, this is being updated along with the coordinated plan. So as we're looking at, is the call for projects process that we've gone through working? Now is the time for us to look at it, open it up, and do some surgery on it if we need to. So generally the history from 2016 to 2024, so this is inclusive, SMART and its subrecipients have done really well in this program. And the reason for that, and this took me a while to put together, I don't think I've even covered. These are probably 60% of the subrecipients. I couldn't fit them all on one page. So this is one of the challenges of this program, is that we have a lot of communities and nonprofits and partners that are doing really wonderful services. And we only have, I know it sounds crazy to say, we only have $5 million a year to invest in them. So we do have to balance the ongoing needs of these services. We have to focus on their capital needs. But we also have to make sure we have some parity and equity in the program as we're moving forward. So just wanted to identify, and I could go through all these and tell you everything that they do, but just I thought it was important to identify the number of people throughout the region that are involved in funding for 5310. So, yes, ma'am.
Are we taking questions throughout or at the end?
I have no issues with it.
Through
If you
the
guys-
chair.
The chair, so I
Yes.
don't forget. Maybe I missed over this. So go back to that slide of all the partners or some of the partners. I mean, are there priorities in here? Like, are these folks, I don't want you to tell me all what they do, but are there certain priorities? And then are there key performance indicators? Like, do they have to report back to you?
Yep. So we'll get to that. Give me 2 slides.
Okay.
Yeah. So the program that we had so I combined fiscal year 23 and 24, we had $13 million available, which is a little more than usual because we had some COVID relief money that went into the 5310 program. The general goals of the program and Director Chambers, to your question, we're looking to align resources with the highest regional priorities. Those are established in the coordinated plan. Continue to expand regional collaboration, just have general goals to kind of not reduce duplicate administrative efforts, and just continue to kind of work together. We had a review committee that included SMART, DDOT, AAATA, WATS, SEMCOG, MDOT, our Citizens Advisory Committee, and of course, RTA staff. I can't thank Ian enough and SMART and their leadership enough for how much they've helped us really understand the needs of their very, very large subrecipient pool, and particularly their vehicle needs and other pieces of this program. So for this program, we received $22 million in funding requests from 39 agencies for 67 different projects. Why are there different projects? We received separate applications for vehicle replacements or continuing operations or mobility management. So lots of applications to go through. Again, getting to some of the programming priorities, 55% has to go to vehicle replacements. So you kind of lop that right off the top and say, we have to do this. In the first year in 2023, we had about 1.5 million in additional investment for the smart community providers. This is because, as we all know, during COVID, when purchasing was happening, all those small buses, just like large buses, just like cars, just like groceries, ended up costing a lot more. So we ended up having to make an investment in that first year to make sure that people who had active procurements were getting those fully funded. And I want to say there was 30 plus providers or so that benefited from that action in that first year. We did try to the best of our ability to fund continuing operations in fiscal year 23. We funded regional mobility management. So that's the My Ride 2 service, which is a service that we operate in partnership with a group that's now called Ageways. It used to be the AAA 1B. Area Agency on Aging 1B. They've changed their name to Ageways, folks want to know. That is a regional call center and website that anybody throughout our entire region can call and get information about what types of services they need. If you're a senior, a person with a disability, a caregiver. So that's something we continue to fund. Peak, which does travel training, particularly for people with cognitive disabilities throughout the region, has been a long time program funded through here. And then trying to balance regional equity. So as you saw earlier, the smart providers have received a overwhelming proportionate amount of the funding. So in 2024, we did have to fund a very competitive project for the DDOT program. That does not mean it's going to be that way every year. That's why we reopen the process and continue to talk about how we can best do this. So this is the breakdown between 23 and 24. You can see again, the vehicle replacements is again the number one thing we're trying to do. Mobility management. We were able to fund a good chunk of subrecipient, what I call CPP operations in 23. But in 24, we did fund a DDOT project. That project is to pilot same day paratransit service for the next 2 years in the DDOT service area. And that's the first funding for the city of Detroit in the last 3 to 4 years. And I think going forward, so again, we're updating the planning process. Some of the things I really want to focus on, and I know our team does, simplifying the application process. These small providers don't have time to fill out applications in triplicate. Not that we're asking them to do that, but how can we simplify the process and make the money flow a lot better? More focus on KPIs and identifying regional impact. We have kind of a broad programming focus, but we want to focus a little bit more on ridership and on-time performance and what value are we getting out of these services for the region. We want to speed up programming delivery. How do we get the funding out to subrecipients a lot more quickly? We're open to discussing with smart subrecipient management and how that works. And then making sure all of this is ready for the next time the feds come and make sure we're doing all the things we need to do. So with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Ben. Ms. Chambers?
One additional question. Is the $5 million pretty flat over the last years and going forward?
Yeah, it's been pretty flat. In 2024, we actually saw a slight reduction because that is formula money that is tied to population. So that $5 million, it used to be a little closer to 6, it's a little closer to 5. So we actually had to take about a $500,000 cut in the 2024 program. The RTA took that out of the mobility management stuff that we manage. We didn't take that away from anybody else. We just ate that one. So that is because our population is remaining flat and everybody else is growing. So when we see the governor put a population growth piece forward, there's actual real implications for transit. We saw similar reductions in our 5307 funding. So,
Gotcha. Ian, do you want to add anything else to what Ben threw out there today? And then we'll open up to questions.
We have an action item that I just wanted to present on.
Appreciate that. That's the resolution that's in the packet, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
and itemizes the project descriptions for fiscal year funding 2024. That is in front of the board today.
Okay, so it's yes. So staff recommends board approval of the resolution authorizing FY 2024 5310 program of projects. SMART applies on behalf of our subrecipients for FTA section 5310 funding annually. The FTA requires a program of projects be submitted with that grant application. So that's what you see in this agenda item. An FTA section 5310 total of $2,516,605 is included in this program of projects. And we're available to answer any questions you may have about that list.
Ian, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any comments from members of the board on the resolution? Ben, I have one more question, if you don't mind, real quick. Very much appreciate the outreach that you and the members of the board from Macomb County have had with regards to this. As we've discussed candidly, I think there's been a little bit of friction of this with some of the reliance that there is from a number of our community providers on these 5310 funds. We understand that these are formulaic based on population and all those other wonderful things that the federal government prescribes in these elements. But I think that there's a growing demand here, not only with regards to the aspirations of our community providers and I think a considerable amount of creativity that's being brought forward with these proposals. So I just want to not only highlight that while we are very much appreciative of the creativity that's coming in with DDOT and a number of the other capital aspirations that are out there with replacement, I think this is an area where we're going to continue to want to not only work with the RTA to explore and understand how we're going to advocate for additional dollars, that whether that's something that we've got to throw chairs at people that work in DC or have some persuasive conversations on that front. I also very much want to thank both Ryan and Harmony on our teams for their inventiveness in finding some of the solutions for our community providers. Because of some of the interest in funding some of the other areas from some of our regional providers, there's been some strain that whether it's on Richmond Lennox EMS or some of the other things that have had to go by the wayside, SMART has done a tremendous job in picking up the slack in some of those areas. And while that's provided a little bit of strain with us, I think that we are very much interested to see how this technical working group goes with what this coordinated plan looks like moving forward. But most importantly, how we may be able to advise our friends at the state and federal level to maybe seed some other operations to lessen the concern on that end. So I know I just said a lot of things that are in agreement and very much align with some of the things that we've discussed candidly, but very much would appreciate RTA's attention on that matter.
Yeah,
Well, can I just piggyback that
Sure.
for a minute? Because now you maybe have another question. So if the $5 million comes to us based on a formula of a population formula, I'm assuming of our region, does the $5 million go out based on population?
no, it does not go out based on population, but the formula includes different population metrics, and it only looks at the urbanized area of the region. So if you assume that any of the providers that we're funding are outside the urbanized area defined by the census, you'd have to look at that boundary.
So are there areas in Oakland and Macomb and Wayne that are outside the urbanized areas?
Yes.
Absolutely.
But that chart that was in here included independents, so I'm assuming they're not outside of the urbanized areas.
They're probably half and half. I don't have my mapping.
I mean, if you can't get outside of the urbanized areas in Brandon, I'm not quite sure where you can.
You're right. Yeah.
The
So
booming metropolis of Brandon Township.
so that's one of the issues. And I think one of the things we can discuss during the 5310 when we're relooking at this is using a different formula, something we want to do. How do we want to come at this? But at the end of the day, I couldn't agree more with the chair that we need more money for the pot. I mean, look at that slide, and that's again probably 60% of the people that have come to try and get funding. $5 million a year isn't going to get us where we need to go. And
Isn't that we look at things like this all of the time, but when we think about the millage money,
Yeah.
you know, you are getting service based on the millage that you pay in. So if you were gonna tell us how much of this money was spent in Oakland, Wayne and Macomb, what would that breakdown be?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but so I don't want to answer that question directly without having the numbers.
Ben, if you can give us a little bit of overview that whether it's historically, I mean, obviously you
Sure.
provided the pie chart, which illustrated
Yeah.
the amount.
But you
that
want
went to
the smart share broken down into Oakland, Wayne?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
so we can see the providers where they've maybe enhanced some funding, maybe we've been successful. And the other thing is Hillary, what I'm kind of thinking too is how could that help us maybe coordinate some of these things, not only with regards to fiscal year 2024, but as you're seeking input in this new coordinated process, if there's an opportunity for us to look at like communities, join some of the townships or even some of the NOTA WOTA stuff with some of the conversations we're having with our townships, I think that could maybe help us put together some more robust proposals and access some additional funding.
Assuming our transit staff is like the one that jumps out at me is Independence, right? Because NOTA is now doing a pilot providing service in Independence. So I'm not sure if this amount predates that or if they're transferring this money to NOTA.
We'd have to, that's probably not 2024 money. That's the history of the program is my guess.
Okay.
So that's a great point. So one of the things that was happening during this programming was that the Oakland County millage and the changes associated with that was kind of at its infancy. So we now have a few years to understand the impact of that funding, what those providers are doing. But again, to the chair's point, they're growing. The providers in Macomb County are growing and want to grow. The city wants to, everybody wants to grow in this space. So we have to be able to.
And I don't want, Macomb to make, the thing that we're learning is at some point we have to rationalize all of these community-based services.
Yeah,
You know, so that like, I mean, Smart is doing this. For example, I know when I go to the Hazel Park Recreation Center, there's 3 Smart buses sitting out in the parking lot most of the time. I'm sure it's very useful for them when they're using them to drive seniors to different events, but should those vehicles be available for other service?
Sure.
So everyone likes to have their own little service, but is that is that the most efficient use of our vehicles and our service? So we have to just think through, as we're funding the local programs, are we encouraging more providers at the expense of someone who could provide more efficient service if they were doing it on a broader basis?
So Hillary, I think the prime one on this list for us is MCA. That's been a legacy agency that's done a tremendous amount of coordinated transportation services. And while we've done great work for those individuals that access the community services programs at the county, we know that there's some bandwidth to not only expand, but also partner with some of those local providers. As we know, Richmond Lennox EMS is now coming in to be the provider in Clinton Township, which is where we house the majority of our MCA services. So I think these are some of those elements that as we're trying to carve out the influence we can have on this and bring Ben and team some more, I guess, robust proposals, it could give us an opportunity to not only target more dollars, but illustrate how we tie that into the horsepower of Smart proper too. So Ben, thank you for your willingness to get yelled at for this.
this was fine. This is the first time I've ever been in front of the Smart Board, by the way. So
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
here.
I'm-
We're here.
I'm here too.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys need.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
thanks.
Appreciate that, Ben. And Ian, we do have a request from staff. If the chair could please receive a motion to approve the resolution for our Smart Fiscal Year 2024 5310 program of projects. Been moved?
Support.
Supported? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ian, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. And Ben, thank you very much. Alrighty, we are going to letter D, resolution for authorization of a contract for domain name service management software subscription. Mel, how are we doing today?
Doing well, doing well.
What do we need?
Do we have to do a motion first?
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Been moved? Supported? How we doing, Mel?
Excellent. Staff recommends board approval for the resolution authorizing the purchase of DNS software. All networks utilize domain name services or DNS. The DNS service responsibility is to translate website names such as smartmovesups.org into an IP address that is utilized to traverse the internet. The software we are purchasing for this project will provide the necessary security functions that harden our DNS and protect our network. This is to be done at a cost not to exceed $176,547.60. This project is funded with operating funds. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the information, Mel. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are going to move on to letter E, a resolution for authorization of an award for contract for firewall software protection, 3-year renewals subscriptions. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Been moved? Supported? Mel? Number 2.
Yeah, staff recommends the approval of the resolution authorizing the purchase of firewall software at a cost not to exceed $316,790. This project is funded with operating funds.
Thank you, Mel. Any discussion from members of the board on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Mel, let's try to go 3 for 3 here on letter F, resolution award for revenue contract amendment with STC 5 LLC for the cellular tower site at the Wayne Terminal. Can I get a motion? Been moved?
Support.
Been supported? Mel?
All right. Staff recommends board approval for the resolution authorizing a revenue contract amendment for the cellular tower at the Wayne Terminal. The expected revenue for the first 12 months of this agreement is $49,200. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Can we get about 5 more towers? I mean, we could try. So, excellent. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mel. We are going to move on to letter H, I believe, the ratification of contract for digital sign licensing and support. Mr. Burt, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, and yourself?
No complaints. Can I get a motion, please?
So
Been moved? Been second? Go ahead.
all right. It is the recommendation that the board adopts attached resolution authorizing the award of a contract for digital sign licensing and support for the 32-inch bus stop shelter signs to Connect Point. This is a 2-year contract with no renewal options at a total cost of $76,720. Any questions?
Any questions on the 32-inch bus shelter signs? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to letter I, a correction for the ratification of a clerical error for towing services authorization. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Been moved? Been supported? Mr. Burt?
Yes. It is the recommendation that the board adopts the attached resolution to correct a clerical error made in the March 23rd, 2023 board resolution to increase the projected authorization amount for primary towing services for Boulevard and Trumbull for option years 1 and 2 to the corrected amount not to exceed $222,000 for each option year. Along with this recommendation, I would like to inform the board on the progress to procure 3 tow trucks. The maintenance department has begun the process, identified funding sources, and drafted the specifications. An internal review of the specification is scheduled to be completed August 15th, 2024. The solicitation will be published online for vendor review and bid submission on August 21st, 2024, and will remain open for 4 weeks, followed by the evaluation process. Once the evaluation process is completed, I'll be able to give you a confirmed date on delivery.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Burt.
questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Dr. Ivory.
What would you make to clerical error?
The nature of the clerical error, sir?
What was that you said?
What was the nature of the clerical error? Looks like we approved 182.5, but we needed 222.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we approved, or you guys approved, I'm Sean Riapel, Vice President of Procurement.
Hey, Sean.
What was approved originally was 182,250, and that was the original amount. You guys, the board approved an increase of 21 to 22%, but we didn't follow through with an increase in the authorized amount. It was just the rates that were increased.
It's probably a good catch. There you go. Yeah, we'll fix that one. Excellent. That won't just be a rounding error. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are moving on to letter J, ratification payment for purchases with WW Granger for small tools, maintenance, repair, and operation supplies and fasteners. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Been moved?
Support.
Supported? Mr. Burt?
Yes. It's the recommendation that the board adopts the attached resolution ratifying payment for purchases with WW Granger for small tools and fasteners for the maintenance department for an additional amount not to exceed $65,000 through June 30th, 2024. Any questions?
Any questions from members of the board? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Burt. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Now we're going to move on to letter K, a ratification of payment for services rendered for the Stratagen for Adept 6 software maintenance. Can I get a motion? Mo? Supported. Danny, how are we doing today, sir?
Good. How are you?
No complaints.
Good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Staff is recommending board approval for the resolution authorizing payment to Adept Strategy Systems in the amount of $66,633.33. In June of 2023, the board approved a contract to Strategy Systems to replace the Adept 6 software with Adept IQ.
That project is still ongoing. We have not formally and officially switched over to IQ. However, in the meantime, we needed to have a maintenance contract to support Adept 6. And this $66,633.33 would be payment for those services rendered.
Excellent. Thank you, Danny. Any
Okay.
discussion from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it. Next, we're gonna go on to HIJKL. I got two here. Ratification approval of the Smart Equal Employment Opportunity Policy. Is there a presentation? There is no presentation. Oh, Candace, come on up. We're having fun today.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. Every 4 years or as major changes occur in the workforce or employment conditions, SMART is required by FTA to submit an updated equal employment opportunity and affirmative action plan that includes a signed and dated EEO policy statement issued by the agency's general manager. Staff recommends board approval of the amended EEO policy statement to reflect Tiffany Gunther, Deputy General Manager, as the EEO Compliance Officer. Staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Candace. Appreciate it. Any conversation or comments from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to enter into closed session, please. And we will need a roll call vote.
Vice Chairperson,
I need a motion first.
Also moved.
It's moved. Supported. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson John Paul Reyes.
Yes.
Dr. Curtis Ivory.
Oh.
Negotiations.
We will be heading into closed session to discuss ongoing negotiations.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Chairman. Dr. Ivory.
Yes.
Dr. I'm sorry, Ms. Sheila Cote. Yes. Mr. Burt Reyes again. Ms. Hillary Chambers.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, we're gonna head into closed session. Thank you. I'm gonna gavel because I have a gavel and we have quorum, so do that on that end. Alrighty, so. Any board member business to discuss? Any board member business to discuss? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Been moved? Been supported. All those in favor, please signify by